Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show. Taking a look back at racing from this past weekend, that would be June the 9th, 2018. Happened to be Belmont Stakes Saturday, and the Belmont will be the leadoff as far as our recaps are concerned this week. If you listen to this program podcast form, like most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. If you listen over on YouTube, click that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. You get all the latest offerings from DRF TV. If you listen on iTunes, write us a nice little review. Give us a nice rating. Would be greatly appreciated. Let's not bury the lead. We're going to go over the 6 Grade 1 races in depth, as we normally do with the recaps, and then the other graded stakes races, just from a timing standpoint, because there was about 5 million of them this weekend. They're all going to be included in the stakes montage. We'll give you the weekend's best from a buyer speed figure standpoint and the best performances, as well as the DRF TV schedule of events for this upcoming week. Without further ado, though, let's take a look at the field for the 150th Belmont Stakes, the test of the champion 10 3-year-olds going a mile and a half. The question was Justify. Would he be able to successfully earn his sort of place in the history of American racing, becoming the 13th Triple Crown champion? And would any of the other competitors actually be able to give him a legitimate threat or a legitimate fight? Ultimately, this thing kind of planned out and played out the way that I think most people thought it would. Justify was the best horse coming in, and he's the best horse coming out. Larry Colmus with the stretch run of the 150th Belmont Stakes.
The stretch, and Justify comes roaring home to a raucous Belmont Park with 1 furlong to run. Gronkowski and Hofberg trying to run him down. Vino Rosso is fourth, a 16th to go. Justify is still there. Justify from Gronkowski. He's just perfect, and now he's just immortal. Justify
is your Triple Crown champion, the 13th in the history of American racing. He gets the job done as the 4-5 favorite in the Belmont Stakes. Gronkowski making his stateside debut for Chad Brown and Jose Ortiz. He runs a very, very impressive second at odds of 24-1. And the third place finisher is Hofberg, going out for Belmont and Irad Ortiz Jr., 5-1 on his odds, rounding at a trifecta that for 50 cents came back $114.87. Let's talk about the big boy, the big horse, Justify. He is 6 for 6 lifetime. He is the Triple Crown champion. He is just under $3.8 million in career earnings, owned by, get ready, long list here, China Horse Club International Limited, Windstar Farm, Starlight Racing, and Head of Plains Partners LLC, trained by Bob Baffert, now a 2-time Triple Crown winner, bred by John D. Gunther in the state of Kentucky, ridden to victory by Mike Smith, arguably no more deserving rider of an accolade such as the Triple Crown than Mike Smith, one of the true good guys in all of horse racing. And you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He is by Scat Daddy, out of a Ghost Zapper mare named Stage Magic. Let's talk a little bit about the figures before we go into all the storylines in this Belmont Stakes. Justify earns a 101 buyer speed figure and a 125 Timeform US rating. Timeform US had the half mile and the mile calls color-coded red, meaning they were fast paces, possibly favoring horses coming from off of it and making it a little bit more difficult for horses forwardly placed, which, guess what? The most forward of them all was Justify throughout, which I think just really solidifies how impressive this effort was again from him. He got his final quarter mile in 25:28. The good news is he's never going to have to run a mile and a half again. The bad news for some of these other horses is it doesn't seem like Justify is going anywhere, because you hear Elliott Walden, you hear some of the other folks associated with this horse. It sounds like they would like to run him at least through the end of this year. I would be very surprised if you saw him as a 4-year-old. I suppose the only thing that would possibly bring him back for that would be a race like the Pegasus World Cup and the Dubai World Cup. But nonetheless, this horse is worth so much money right now. And if we can just get him through the rest of his 3-year-old campaign, I think we would all be very, very thrilled with that. Again, 6 for 6 lifetime. What he has accomplished really since the second week in February, wrap your mind around that. He's gone from a maiden to a Triple Crown winner. There have only been 13 of them ever. He's one of 13, and you look at the names that are on that list. He is really, I keep calling him an uncommon talent, and I think that's the best way to describe him. He's very uncommon, because this isn't something that we see, even from the best horses that we've seen throughout racing history. And I'm not ready to put him as far as a top 5 all-time or anything like that, but I think there's a legitimate case to be made that this is the greatest start to a career in racing history. I mean, can you think of another horse that has done anything remotely close to this to start their career? I can't. He went from a maiden on February 18th, I believe was his career debut, broke his maiden, and here we are. This is being recorded on June the 11th. The race was on June the 9th. He's a Triple Crown winner. It's remarkable to see what this horse has done in such a short amount of time, and the continued brilliance of his performances. The only one that was a mild sweat was the Preakness, and truth be told, it didn't really ever look like he was in danger of losing that race. So I'm just blown away by this horse, and really it's difficult. I think I talked about it when we went over in the recap edition of this show for the Derby. The fact that, the whole Curse of Apollo thing and all that kind of stuff, it was just difficult to quantify and really put into context what this horse has accomplished in this short amount of time. That was after the Derby. And all he's done, 2 weeks later, he won the Preakness, and 3 weeks later, he came here and won the Belmont at a mile and a half. It's difficult to put into perspective just how uncommon this is. I think this is really sort of one of the greatest beginnings to a career, if not the greatest, that we have ever seen and we probably ever will see. I think Andy Serling tweeted it on Saturday night. You're probably never going to see this ever again. Something like this, the way that this horse has gone, where he's essentially come from nowhere to win everything. He's just a very, very special talent, and I think credit belongs to the Connections for getting him ready to go and having him be at his best on the biggest stage against, by all indications, a pretty solid group of 3-year-olds. It'd be one thing if you thought that this was a subpar group. It seems like we have some legitimate quality with this generation, this group, this crop of 3-year-olds. And the fact that Justify has just come along and blitzed everyone, very, very impressive. Before we talk about each individual sort of horse that we need to talk about coming out of this, let's talk about what everyone seems to be talking about, which is kind of annoying to me. But I'll tell you why. People talk about restoring hope, and I will be the first one to say, look, I believe me, I heard from a number of you. I said it on Friday, said he's not a likely winner, but I'm picking him. I'm going to take a shot. He didn't win. Fine. It is what it is. But more people are more interested in the way he was ridden by Florent Geroux. The notion of him being a blocker for Justify, when you see that he's hustled after breaking a little bit slowly, he's basically kept out 5-6 path going into the first turn. Many people think that is to prevent Noble Indy from clearing over, and then he comes over and basically gets himself into that beautiful stalking position in the 2-path, boxing in a horse like Bravazzo. The way that I'm looking at this whole thing, you hear different connections coming out and saying, we wish there was other pressure, the stewards should look into this, blah, 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 blah. To me, how different, and let's just use, and I'm not trying to make pick on anyone, but Mike Rapoli was very outspoken that he had said, I think the stewards will look into something like this, into Geroux's ride, and say, well, when you come out and you block a horse like that, this, that, and the other thing. And then he follows up the rest of that quote with talking about how Javier Castellano aboard Noble Indy did not ride Noble Indy to instruction, where the instruction was to go up and push Justify. Now, in theory, the reason you're pushing Justify is to help a horse like Vino Rosso, who Rapoli also owned, have a better opportunity to win the race. If I am, and I understand there's no common ownership between Justify and Restoring Hope, but they're both trained by Baffert. If I am riding Restoring Hope, or I've heard instructions, one way or the other, the idea is to, okay, let's just stay a little bit wide going into the first turn, be forward and stay wide. That's not Geroux's fault that a horse like Noble Indy wasn't ridden the way that they told him to ride. Do you want it just kind of handed over to you on silver platter? You kind of had to think that there might have been something going on. But then again, I'm looking at this from the perspective of the way that I laid it out on Friday. And if I'm betting the horse like I did, I think Geroux rode him the right way. The horse wasn't good enough, fine. But he ultimately had the perfect position. He sat just off of Justify's flank. And he got there when no one else seemed to want to. Noble Indy, if you wanted to make the front, you could have made the front. And I think that's the thing that people are saying, oh, well, at a mile and a half, you would have just ruined the horse. You might have. You might have, but that's not the point. The point is, if you wanted to make the front, I know they went fast. The opening quarter was 23-1. If you wanted to make the front, you could have made the front. You would have been 6 wide going into the first turn, but you could have gone 22 and cleared off. You absolutely could have, but they didn't. So to me, it's a little bit of crying over spilt milk. It's a little bit of sour grapes where you're right. You didn't get the ride that you had hoped for. But then I don't think you can sit there and criticize another sort of connection or another rider for riding the way he was either told to ride or the way he thought was best to win the race. And again, I don't care if you think that he was 500-1 or he should have been 500-1. As someone that had a little bit of money with the horse, I thought he had the perfect position, Florent Geroux, on Restoring Hope. If you want to say, then all of a sudden, he comes in and he boxes in bravado so Justify can be out there all by his lonesome. Again, if this is any other race, he's taken up the ideal stalking position. And just as much for his sake. And again, I realize there could be other things. But that's my point is, if I'm looking at it strictly from handicapping the race, he did everything that he was supposed to do. He got the horse out of there. He was a little bit slow from the gate, but he used him. Got him into a forward position. Horses had been winning pretty much on the lead or near the lead all day on the main track. And in the process, you box in one of your main competitors. Sure, the horse that you need to beat is in front of you, but realistically, you're not going to duel with him, and you're probably not nearly as good as him. I just think there's so many things going on here that it just feels like people are complaining just to complain. And let's just also, I guess another thing too, and again, I'm not trying to harp on anybody in particular, but Mike Rapoli just happens to be the owner of Vino Rosso. Vino Rosso had every opportunity. Going around the far turn, he rolls up, and he's right there off of Justify. And when he started being asked by Velasquez, there was nothing there. So, Vino Rosso was just very even throughout the rest of the real running of the race. To me, I think it's just an instance where Justify, people are saying we would have loved to have seen someone go and pressure him. Well, sure. Well, everyone had an opportunity to go and pressure him, but no one did. So I can just sit there and point fingers and say, well, if they had gone, we would have had a better chance. That you can say that with any race on any given day. If this horse had gone, oh man, this race could have been totally different. It could have, but it didn't work out that way. It is what it is. And let's be honest, too. As someone I didn't pick Justify, but he was very clearly, very obviously the best horse in the race. And I tried to make that abundantly clear, but some people just don't hear. He was probably going to win anyway. If you went and tried to push him, like Good Magic did 3 weeks prior, and I think it was the right call from Jose Ortiz, but you saw what happened. You tried to push him, and it ended up costing him an entire placing in the race. Forget about trying to win. I don't know. There are just some things there that it just felt like, and really the aftermath, the folks in social media, this has just turned into a thing. It's incredible to me. When really, let's talk about the horse that won the Triple Crown some more, and the way that he did it. It is what it is. I mean, you're never going to make everyone happy, and people are always going to have issues with certain things. But let's talk about some of the other individual horses anyway. Justify already made it known how impressed I am with him. I would imagine the Haskell is going to be the next step. I would imagine after that, probably the Pennsylvania Derby and then the Breeders' Cup Classic. That would be just a guess. There is nothing out there just yet, but knowing Baffert, knowing the way that he normally likes to go, the path to a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic, that to me seems like it would be the most logical run. Gronkowski, I was very impressed. I discounted this horse going into it. I just said he looks good on dirt and training, but it's a totally different animal. He's facing much better horses than he's ever faced. 1.5 miles, first time over here, X, Y, and Z. I thought for a hot minute, turning for home, if he had changed leads a little earlier, I wonder if he gets a little bit closer. I don't think he was ever going to win. But this was a tremendous effort from Gronkowski. 99 Beyer, 123 time form U.S. rating. You give him a little bit more, you give Chad Brown more time with this horse, I think Gronkowski's very, very interesting. Now, the concern has to be his running style. And I'm sure Chad will, try to do something with that. I'm not sure how that works as far as training a horse to have more speed, but to me, he's just the kind of horse that he's going to need to be a lot closer than he was in the Belmont. But I'm not holding that against him for this race. This was an unbelievable effort from him, a great ride from Jose Ortiz, and a great training job from Chad to have this horse run as well as he did in his first start in the States and only be beaten by Justify by a length and 3/4 coming from dead last. I thought it was a really, really impressive effort and something that he can certainly build on going forward. Hofberg, I don't want to say it was a disappointing effort. It was just, it felt like if anybody was going to really have the opportunity to take a shot against Justify, it would have been him. And he took his shot, but he wasn't even any match for Gronkowski. So he's going to still need to improve. I guess I'm mildly disappointed with this. I expected a little bit better effort. Wasn't bad by any stretch. I think this was the fastest race actually of his career. 97 Bayer, 122 time form US rating. But I just expected a little bit more from him. He was a little early with the lead change as well. But Hofberg, I'm still high on him. I still think he's going to be a good horse down the road. Vino Rosso, I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in him. He feels a little bit to me like he is too much of a plotter, where, you need a lot of things to go your way if it's going to work. I'm not totally discrediting him or discounting him. I would imagine if they show up for a race like the Travers, he'll be interesting. I believe it. Pletcher had said that they may train him up to it. We'll wait and see. I think he ran just fine, but fine, that's all. If I'm taking anyone else out of the rest of these horses, by the way, Blended Citizen was wider than wide. He's probably not that good anyway, but don't hold this against him. Restoring Hope, certainly not this good anyway. I thought he had a perfect trip, and it just didn't work out for him one way or the other. And again, if you believe other things were going on, that's your opinion. I don't believe that, but whatever. Free Drop Billy, he still has just not improved. Noble Indy, he was no good in this race to begin with, but again, if you believe he wasn't ridden the way that he was supposed to be ridden, which, by the way, would have been strictly as a rabbit, it is what it is. I still think Noble Indy's okay, but this race has got to be a little bit of a concern considering he backed up as badly as he did. The two horses that I haven't spoke of are Bravazzo and Tenfold. Bravazzo, I do wonder if Preakness, again, was the time to have him, and also did the wet track move him up? More importantly, Tenfold. I was a little chilly on Tenfold coming into this race, the Belmont Stakes. Coming out of this race, I'm much higher on him. I thought this was a really good effort because, to me, he is the only horse in this entire race that I can sit there and say, I think he had legitimate trouble. Where going into the first turn, it was in tight when Restoring Hope was sent on that mission to try to get up there and establish position. He was in a little bit tight. Rounding the first turn, he was down on the inside, had to check real quick. Ricardo Santana did. Down the backside, he was able to relax a little bit, but then when they started really running in the far turn, he was stuck in behind a wall of horses, had to angle down to the inside, had a little bit of trouble there, and then had to angle 4 or 5 paths off the far turn and just stayed on evenly. To me, you get him shorter distances than this, probably a mile and an eighth, maybe a mile and a quarter. I think Tenfold's really interesting coming out of this race. I didn't like him here. I do like him going forward. I think he might be the horse, obviously, with the exception of Justify and the obvious players. I think Tenfold could be the one that maybe we see a big move forward as he continues to mature. Keep in mind, I believe this is only start number 5 in his entire career. So I think Tenfold has a big sort of future ahead of him in the upcoming weeks. I'd imagine we see him at Saratoga at some point. But at the end of the day, this race boiled down to the best horse having the best trip, with the best connections, really, as far as the Triple Crown is concerned. Hard to argue with Bob Baffert right now with 2 Triple Crowns in 4 years, considering we hadn't had one for 37 years prior to American Pharoah. I don't want to compare the two horses right now. Maybe I'll do that on Friday with the preview edition, comparing Justify and American Pharoah and how they've got to the point that they've gotten to at this point anyway, through the Triple Crown. But it is really hard. Anyone that's sitting there saying he had a soft trip, who did he beat, blah, 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 that's dumb. That's dumb. I've made it clear that the Triple Crown is not my favorite thing, but it's still a tremendous accomplishment. And I think Justify just goes to show what he has accomplished in such a short amount of time, with no seasoning, with no foundation. He's truly an uncommon talent, a very special talent. Justify beats Gronkowski, who finishes ahead of Hofberg in the 150th Belmont Stakes. Justify with a 101 Beyer speed figure and a 125 Timeform US rating for the 13th Triple Crown champion in American racing history.